Hey everybody, this is Dream. We actually have a special night slate for Saturday evening. We have 9 games, I believe, in this matchup, and they all look pretty decent games. There's really only one that is a huge blowout risk. There's a couple others that are kind of close to being blowout risk worthy, but most of these games are actually pretty solid. I feel like this is probably one of the best slates that we've had in the opening weekends, and so I think it's probably worth doing a video over. So I went through each team, went through their depth charts, tried to get the best quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, and ordered out so that I could give you some good information about each particular position. And so without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and get into the quarterbacks themselves. So I have the top quarterback overall is C.J. Stroud for Ohio State. Now the reason I'm choosing him is because last season he only had 2 games under 23 points, and this particular game, while they are favored by 15, it's still pretty safe. I think he should be able to get into that range. Now, obviously, his price is a little bit expensive, and so you have to take that into consideration. There's definitely better quarterbacks available from price perspective, but of the expensive guys, he's one of the safer ones. Like Bryce Young, he's pretty unsafe because they're at 41 point ahead of UTST, so I don't really like him at all. And then, of course, we have some backup quarterbacks that we could throw in these games, but I particularly just want to focus on quarterbacks that are starting. As for the next guy, is Will Rogers for Mississippi State. He should be able to show off in this matchup because his opponent is not very great defensively, but it's still kind of a 15-point game, so I feel like that he has some good options. And they kind of throw the ball a lot at Mississippi State, and he's got some good wide receivers to choose from, and so I think that that's going to be a game where he has some 30-plus point upside, and he's definitely cheaper than Stroud, so he's definitely somebody I like quite a bit. Tanner Mordecai for SMU is my next guy. He is in a tight game situation with the highest points on the slate, so that just makes him a top-tier option, and they do seem to throw the ball a lot most of the time. They have a few games occasionally where they don't, but he looks like he's going to be a good quarterback for their team. The next guy is Will Levis for Kentucky. Now, I am a Kentucky fan. Will Levis is considered to be a top-tier quarterback this season. There's a little bit of risk when it comes to the fact that he only has one wide receiver, really, and a tight end to throw the ball to, and then also Kentucky's top running back is out. He also is looking to potentially put in a Heisman campaign, but our offense isn't quite ball happy as some of the other offenses available. But he does have a cannon for arm, and he does manage to get some big points sometimes. And if the game stays, even remotely close, he'll play most of the game. Obviously, I think there's some better quarterbacks available, but he's not a bad option because his price is a little bit cheaper. I do think that I would have liked to see his price maybe another few $100s cheaper to make him a top tier option. But I will say that I think Tavion Robinson, who is his key wide receiver, is going to be somebody that he's going to target a lot in this game, and he should have some very easy approach there. The next guy I like is Spencer Rattler for South Carolina. He's been a really good quarterback where he's been, but he got passed over last season for a better one. So his time is now, and he's in a nice little plus matchup. Obviously, it's a 12-point game spread, so he should get plenty of opportunity to throw the ball around and get a bunch of yards and stuff like that. And then my overall top quarterback based on price is Malik Cunningham for Louisville. The reason I like him so much is because not only does he pass the ball a lot, but he's also going to run the ball quite a bit. As you can see, his yards per game last season, he had a lot of really good ones. And so, yeah, he has a couple bad games, but I think that overall he's going to be really good this year for Louisville, and he'll be able to score a lot of points. Now that says a lot because I'm not really a Louisville fan at all, being a Kentucky fan, but I still think he's going to have a really good season, especially when he's going up against opponents that are going to have trouble stopping him. And Syracuse is definitely an opponent that is not going to have a very easy time stopping him. My last quarterback is kind of a Hail Mary situation. Where is he? I'll just have to type him in here. Anthony Richardson for Florida. Now he's going to be it looks like he's going to be the starter. He's obviously super cheap. In this game, Florida is an underdog to Utah. But it's going to be a high scoring game, 51 points. So I think that, or at least moderately high, I guess. But I think that he's kind of a Hail Mary option, because he's super cheap. And so he's definitely going to have some opportunity to score points in this particular game. So that's what I have at quarterback. Obviously, remember in college football, you can put another quarterback in the S flex, and so I definitely recommend putting somebody there. For my lineups, I'm going to be putting Cunningham in that slot, just because his price is too good. I just think he's probably the best quarterback on the slate overall, and so I definitely recommend utilizing that slot, just because quarterbacks have more upside to be consistent than running backs and wide receivers do. You could argue a couple of different running backs potentially, but I definitely just like a quarterback for the most part. It just depends on how your roster construction goes. But Mikael Cunningham is also my top pick for the most fantasy points tomorrow. The next is going to be our running backs, and so I have about 8 running backs to tell you about. So the first guy is Jahmyr Gibbs for Alabama. Now, obviously, this game is a huge blowout risk, but he should get some good numbers in this particular game, but probably not ideal for his price, but hopefully we can rely on him to get a pretty decent chunk of points. Obviously, if you want to pay down and not want to pay up for him, that's definitely understandable. You can look at Travion Henderson at Ohio State. This guy has 30-point upside in this game if it can stay close. Now, Notre Dame is their opponent, I believe, and so that does, it's hard to say if it's going to stay super close, but if it does, he has 30 to 35-point upside. You can see even last year he had some 40-point games, even a 50-point game against Tulsa. So it's definitely possible, now that he's the lead back, that he could score a lot of points in this game. Then the next guy I've got is, let's see, where is he? Oh yeah, here we go. I don't know how to spell his first name, Marks. Anyway, Jay Marks from Mississippi State. This game is supposed to be a pretty bit closer, and his upside is that he also does a lot of pass catching. That's actually going to be true for Dylan Johnson, the other running back at Mississippi State. Both of them are going to get some touches, and they're both going to get some catches in the game. The spread is 15 points, and they both, especially Dylan Johnson, who's a little bit cheaper at $6,000. Both those guys are going to have some opportunity to score points, and so I definitely like both because the Memphis defense is not going to be hard for them to deal with, and I think that they both have a decent amount of upside in this particular matchup. I wouldn't put both of them in the game, but I would say, if you want to pay down per guy, Dylan Johnson might be a little bit safer, just because if it does get out of hand, Marks might take a seat late in the second half. But overall, I think both guys have some opportunity in this particular game to get some nice upside. Then I've got Tavion Thomas for Utah against Florida. He has had a really good season last year with 1,000 yards, 21 touchdowns, and he is in a situation that's really nice based on his price. And the fact that it's a close game, he should definitely get some touches. Now, if Florida was to be able to get the lead, then they'd have to start throwing the ball. That would hurt him a little bit. But overall, I don't think that's too much of a risk. Then I have Kavasier Smoke for Kentucky. Now, Kavasier Smoke has never been the starting running back at Kentucky. He's always been the backup for the last couple of seasons. But he has some upside because he's a speed guy, and he does run the ball pretty well when he gets option. He is going to be starting because our head starting running back, Chris Rodriguez, is out. Obviously, Chris Rodriguez is one of the top running backs in the country, but he's suspended for the first few games. So Smoke is going to be the guy, and you're going to look for Kentucky to run the ball quite a bit against Miami of Ohio, just to run the clock and stuff. And he has touchdown potential because he's really good at avoiding tackles and stuff like that. So overall, I like him as a pretty decent option, and he's pretty inexpensive. The next guy that I like is Dylan Johnson, who I just mentioned, and so I won't go into him again. Then the next guy I like is Tyon Evans for Louisville. I think that he has some pretty good upside in this game, actually 100-yard upside potential, plus his price is pretty inexpensive, and so I definitely like what he's got going and the potential that he has. And then finally, last but not least, I have Jace McClellan for Bama. Now, he's kind of going to be the backup, but I think he's going to get a lot of opportunities late in the game, And so if you want to pay down for a guy, he's somebody that he's kind of a secondary option, but he's kind of almost a Hail Mary option. But if you think, but I mean, it's pretty obvious that this game's going to be out of control pretty quick in the game. And you can see even last year that he had situations where he got in the game and got a touchdown in that one, and got some catches for touchdowns and stuff like that. So overall, he's a pretty solid option for his price. So that's what I have at running backs. I think we have pretty good solid running backs top to bottom when it comes to price and value and stuff like that. And I don't think you're going to have too much issue creating a nice little lineup with those players. At wide receiver, so my big name is Jackson Smith Najiba. Sorry for butchering your name. Anyhow, he's $8,000. He's really come into his own last season, and I expect him to continue to have a really good season this year. He can definitely score a lot of points. Obviously, there's a little bit of risk in this game against Notre Dame, being in a blowout, but I think it's probably pretty good. Then my next two running backs are from Mississippi State, wide receivers are from Mississippi State. They're going to be throwing the ball a lot, and Raul Thomas and Rufus Harvey are going to be the guys that are going to get the most touches and the most opportunity. And this game is supposedly going to stay pretty tight. So I expect that these two guys are going to have some opportunity to score a decent amount of points. Now, they are a little bit more expensive than I would like them to be, but I still think that they're pretty safe when it comes to scoring points. The next guy is Josh Vann for South Carolina. Radler needs somebody to throw the ball to, and Vann is going to be the top guy, it seems. He definitely has some upside. He had some good games last year, and I think that he has some opportunity and a plus matchup for him. Then I have Mr. Holden for Alabama. He's listed as a starter for the week, and I think that he's going to get a lot of good opportunity in this game. Obviously, it's going to be a blowout, so you have to be a little bit careful from that perspective. But he may stay in the game a little bit longer simply because they want to get him going. His price is also pretty good, considering the fact that it's probably going to be a type of blowout game. The next guy I got is Marvin Harrison Jr. for Ohio State. Obviously, he's the second guy on Ohio State, but he's looking to have a breakout year, and what better way to do it against Notre Dame. Then the next guy I got is Tavion Robinson for Kentucky. Now he's going to be the head wide receiver for Will Levis, and he's going to be the guy. If you remember last season, we had a different Robinson that was our wide receiver, who was our only really good wide receiver. And Levis, threw the ball to him all the time. I think Tavion is going to have a similar situation, and so I think he's a pretty safe option for his price. We're going to have to score some touchdowns in this game against Ohio University, so we definitely like him as an option. Sorry, Miami of Ohio. I don't know why I said Ohio. Anyhow, and then my last two guys are both tight ends, and these guys are almost minimum priced, but they are two of the top three tight ends in the country. One is Brant Guthrie for Utah. Sorry for butchering your name. 50 receptions and 7 touchdowns last season. Look for him to be somebody that's heavily involved in the offense against Florida. And then Mike Mayer. Now, he's more of a Hail Mary than Guthrie is, but he's actually rated as the top tight end in the country, I think. But and he has some upside, but Ohio State's got a pretty good defense, so that's his only super big risk. But I think that he'll be utilized quite a bit, and it will probably pay off for the price if you decide to use him. So that's pretty much what I have for these matchups. I think it's a really nice slate. I think you can build some really interesting lineups. And if you have any comments or questions or any players you think I left out, feel free to leave them below. Thank you for liking, commenting, and subscribing. Have a nice day, guys.